sport of triathlon involves a combination of 3 different disciplines and a whole number of different physical and mental attributes. They certainly are one of the toughest tests on the human body, and for para-triathletes, they present an even bigger challenge. Iain Dawson from Norwich suffers from a rare genetic condition, which means he only has 5% of a normal person's sight. But what makes Iain unique from many other visually impaired people, he is one of the best para-triathletes in the world.
2009 is when I properly became a triathlete. I'd gone quite far with the cycling and maybe needed a new challenge. So I kind of had 2009 playing a little bit in triathlon. There's a nice group of people involved, and I think the variety helps, having the swim, bike, run, rather than just training, for sort of 15-20 hours a week in one discipline. Is quite nice, having 3 things to try and master.
Iain has been blind since birth, being born with a condition called X-linked retinoschisis. The condition is incredibly rare and only found in males. It's estimated to affect 1 male in every 25,000. In Iain's case, there is scarring and partial detachments of his retina, which makes reading small print text, recognising people in the street, and dealing with changing light conditions just some of the problems he faces on a day-to-day basis.
My sort of visual acuity is about 5% of normal, and I also have some peripheral loss around the edges and also in the centre, and my vision is missing. I just kind of get on and do things, but I think it makes reading small print text quite difficult. So I have to use strong magnifiers and other technology.
Despite the visual impairment, Iain has never once let his condition hold him back. After years as a Paralympic cyclist, competing at the Sydney Games in 2000, a change came when he decided to have a go at triathlon, and that transition of sports paved the way for a whole different experience. Iain has had to master running and swimming, as well as managing those with his already strong ability on the bike.
There's certain aspects of sport and triathlon particularly that are challenging, like the open water swim environment's very difficult to orientate in and see the course and follow the buoys. And it would certainly be quite challenging on the bike and maybe a little bit in the run as well. But a lot of that is negated by the fact that people like myself will race with a guide, and so they are basically our eyes during the race.
The work of a guide is crucial for Iain's success. With his sight condition, he would struggle immensely competing on his own. Iain has worked with a number of different triathletes over the years, which means he has had to adapt his technique, often to facilitate the level of ability and style of his guide.
It's really just about finding someone who's quick, finding someone who's committed and willing and able to give up their own racing and their time to practice, but also just finding someone who's a bit fun as well, because I like to have a bit of fun along the way. The bike's not too bad for me because that's my background is cycling, so that comes a lot more naturally, but it's a lot faster. I'm sat on the back of the tandem, guides on the front doing all the looking and the steering, but you just have to stick your head down and pedal like crazy and trust the guide, especially at high speeds going around tight corners and things. There's a lot more trust involved maybe, because you're not really in control of that situation. I think the run is probably, for me, technically the easiest of the disciplines, because I can see a little bit and I can use that vision. I still make the odd error, but again, it's a lot of the courses are quite simple, straight up and down a road, multiple laps. It's running, trying to run at an effective pace to make the most of your guide's ability and for them to help you to get around the course as quick as possible. In the swim, we're tethered to our guides, by an elasticated rope, and we can tether at any point on our body using Velcro onto the suit. And basically what we have to do is then synchronise our swimming, so our arms are overlapping, and rely on a lot of feedback from the tether rope in terms of the direction, but also about keeping in some level of physical contact with the guide, so rubbing shoulders, that kind of thing.
Every sports person has a lot of people that work for them behind the scenes, and Iain is no different. His wife Jill is a massive part of his success. The pair met 20 years ago at a charity event and have since shared their passion for sport and giving opportunities to people with disabilities. Jill acts as Iain's manager and has a huge influence behind the scenes.
I take the pressure off Iain. He can focus on training and competing, and I do everything else. It can be a real logistic nightmare. We have to plan with minute detail because I work away quite a bit of the time. So what we have to do is organise food, so who's eating what, when and how, in terms of driving around, making sure that we're linking things together.
We call her the boss because basically we don't argue with her too much, but no, she does an awful lot. It might be logistics. She does a bit of the planning and organising, booking flights to events, making sure that we get the tandem on the aeroplane, a lot of driving, taking me to races, and also she does a lot of the things around the house like cooking and paying the bills, just because I'm out training and she's better at it than me anyway.
Since taking up triathlon 7 years ago, Iain has established himself as one of the world's best. He won world titles in 2010 and 2012 and was named Para-Triathlete of the Year 5 years ago, despite a traumatic 2011 involving setbacks and injuries. Despite the world titles though, Iain labels his first ever win as the springboard to a successful career in the sport.
I've been, again, very lucky to have some good results. I would say maybe the first European Championships I won with a guy called Liam Gentry, a local triathlete in Ireland, and it was just such a great event for us, and everything came together. We weren't expected to win, and I think we surprised people. That really set the ball rolling for me in triathlon, but apart from that was maybe regaining the world title in Auckland, New Zealand, 2012. With Luke Watson, another guide, just again because we were really up against it, and we produced a brilliant performance to come back after a year of major disasters really.
And as for future aspirations, the temptation of becoming a Paralympic medalist may prove a step too far for Iain after the International Paralympic Committee's decision not to include Iain's category in the 2016 Rio Paralympics. This has meant a reduction in funding, which may make the target of a Paralympic medal too high an ambition for now.
We're very lucky. We've got huge numbers of local sponsors who do really good stuff for us, and that's an important part of the process. In terms of funding, there is no funding at the moment because visually impaired triathlon isn't in the Olympics.
I'll be 43 by the time Tokyo comes around, so it's doable, but each year it will get a little bit harder.
However, an ambition that has replaced Iain's Paralympic dream is an aim shared by many other triathletes and para-triathletes, known as the most difficult one-day sporting event in the world.
I'd also like to just get round and finish an Ironman. That would be a good achievement, and maybe see how quick we can go.